We are very much back on track and on time, ladies and gentlemen. It's time to move on to our next presentation, which comes to you from the Vice President APAC of Confluent. He is Damien Wong, and he's here to speak about Set Data in Motion to Power Your Digital Leadership. Would you please welcome Damien?
Thank you, sir. Morning, everybody. My name is Damien Wong, Vice President for Asia Pacific and Japan at Confluent. First, I want to thank Rama and David for inviting me here. It's been a real pleasure. We've been together for quite a while. I was at in Bhutan, Mongolia, Estonia, all these exotic places. That's not the only reason why I participated in those events, by the way. Yeah. I just want to put it there for the record. But it seems like a lifetime ago. And it's so awesome to see friends. I mean, I saw Annie and, just bumped into Siu Chu. Congratulations again, Siu Chu. And definitely congratulations to Sherin, who is going to be the CIO for the IMF. We're also super proud of Sherin. And I don't want to date us, but she and I actually started in Anderson Consulting in the 90s. I won't say when, yeah. But let's just suffice to say that we are a little older than what we look, thankfully. I'm also very glad I get to wear a suit, yeah, in a real-life event, and not just a jacket, right, with maybe some other form of clothing, right, underneath. So it's really a pleasure to be able to do that. And today I'm going to talk a little bit about a paradigm shift, which is happening to us today. 10 years ago, I embarked on another paradigm shift, which is in the area of open source in the enterprise. And it was very funny because when I started down that journey 10 years ago, I actually spoke to one of the banks here, who is a very, very well-respected bank. And it was very funny because when I said, hey, look, I've joined this company, which is in open source. And they said, well, hang on, we're a real bank. We don't use open source. Okay, that was 10 years ago. And I think that whole landscape has changed, the paradigm has changed. Today, we're seeing another paradigm shift, which is towards data in motion. And we believe that setting data in motion will help you power your digital leadership. Now, how many of you here have young kids? Very few. Looks like the pandemic has not encouraged procreation in Singapore. Yeah. But I don't have young kids anymore. My kids are a bit older. Nonetheless, if they grew up in an era where they look at this device here and they ask themselves, how can this be a telephone? You can't watch anything, you can't listen to music, you can't do all the things you expect in a phone device. And that's the reality of it. The world is changing because of the technology that we have today. It's impacting consumer experiences and shaping the way we think about the way technology is impacting the world. If you looked at the days gone by, technology was just a support function. I think Michael Goritz was just saying that, right? In the early days, you were just told what to do. If you were in IT, you just did it, yeah? Yeah, but we were a support function. Innovation was required only for growth and good enough for you to just run on yesterday's data. But you look at today. Today, technology is the business. Innovation is not just required for growth, it's required for survival. And yesterday's data is not good enough. Yesterday's data will lead to failure. So we need a paradigm shift towards modern real-time data infrastructure. Companies are not just using more software, companies are becoming software. And this is a very good example of that. The taxi industry, right? In the past, you would call up a taxi dispatch service, and then they'll tell you, oh, a taxi will be coming, hopefully, sometime soon. You don't know who is going to be coming. You don't know what the ETA is. You don't know how much it's going to cost. Today, all that information is at your fingertips, right? And I'm sure your favorite ride-hailing company will be able to provide you that information, and you've become accustomed to it. And that transformation is not just happening in one industry. It's happening across all industries. We talked about transformation in financial services, right, with digital banks coming in and fintechs. We look at entertainment, and all of us are used to providers like Netflix and Disney, and that has changed the way that we have our experience have actually become accustomed to a digital way of doing things. And of course, the biggest digitalization factor was COVID, right? So that has accelerated the transformation, and we all know that transformation is happening everywhere. So what is driving this transformation? We believe that certain technology innovations have been responsible. Firstly, cloud. Secondly, artificial intelligence and machine learning. Thirdly, mobility. And finally, we believe data in motion. And what this translates to is that these innovations have actually forced us to rethink the concept of data centers, to rethink the concept of how decisions are made, to rethink the user experience, and to rethink data. We had an earlier comment made about real-time data, right? So I like this image because this really encapsulates the need for real-time data. The question here is, would you blindly cross the street with traffic information that is 5 minutes old, right? And that is that data paradigm shift that we're talking about, from data at rest to data in motion. When you're about to cross the street, you need information that is real-time because you need to know what the traffic conditions are. Is the light green or red? And you need your eyes and ears to tell you what the surrounding environment is before you embark. You can't even afford for that information to be 5 minutes old or even 30 seconds old, right? And that's that paradigm shift we talked about, because in the past, you would just collect all this data and then figure out what you want to do with it. And that was fine because, that's a traditional data architecture around OLAP and, OLTP. But today, there is a new category called data in motion, which is all about this concept of doing things in real time, responding to real time, because that is what the environment necessitates. And we think of it as how data in motion is now the central nervous system for today's enterprise. When we say that, what do we mean? If you put your hand on a hot surface, a hot stove, your central nervous system tells you to pull your hand away immediately, right? And if it doesn't, if your central nervous system is not working properly, you leave your hand there, and guess what happens to your hand? You get damaged, right? You get seriously injured because your body does not tell you that you need to pull this away. So if your body is functioning properly with a proper central nervous system, you take measures to protect yourself and respond in real time. And we believe that data in motion does provide the central nervous system for today's enterprises. And underpinning that is a technology called Apache Kafka, which is what we see as the event streaming technology that powers data in motion. So you might be asking, so what about Kafka and Confluent? What's the relationship? So Kafka was actually invented in LinkedIn by the folks who actually subsequently founded Confluent as a company, right? So the creators of Apache Kafka at LinkedIn open sourced the technology. Today, Kafka is the most popular Apache project. It's the most downloaded Apache project. It has just superseded Hadoop, right? And it really shows the rapid adoption of this technology. And over 80% of Fortune 100 companies today use and trust Apache Kafka. I think this analogy here would please Michael again. He came from Daimler in the past, I recall. And you can think of Kafka as the engine under the hood. Powerful engine. In fact, it's available for free. You can take the engine and build a car around it. But for many people, if you want to get from point A to point B, you don't want to build a car to do that. You either buy a car, or in some cases, you take a ride-hailing service, right? Which is great. So we have Confluent and Confluent Cloud, which allows you to have that same capability. You don't have to build the car in order to experience the service of getting from point A to point B. And that's what Confluent does with Kafka. So, in summary, we have heard from various speakers today about how organizations need to drive digital leadership in order to stay relevant to their customers and their industries. And we see that data in motion is truly the key to achieving this digital leadership, because you cannot use traditional data architectures with a data at rest mindset to apply it to data in motion use cases. I'm not saying take whatever you have in your legacy infrastructure and throw it away, right? That's not the point, because those two should coexist. For example, in the example of the traffic crossing, data that you consolidate around traffic conditions, right, in a data lake, in a data warehouse, that can be used to do analytics on where you put those pedestrian crossings, at how much of spacing you want to do it based on analytics that you conduct. But when you want to cross the road, you don't want to use information of traffic conditions generally around 5 p.m. at this place to determine those decisions. So I just want to highlight that those two should coexist. This is not a call for you to throw everything out and replace it with a new data architecture. This is about informing you of a new data architecture that needs to coexist with your existing data architectures. And finally, if you are ready to set your data in motion, then we believe that Confluent is your trusted partner for doing this. So with that, I just want to say thank you for listening to me for the last 10 minutes. Wish you a great rest of the conference. Thank you.